Hello, good morning everyone. Glad to see you again. I hope that all of you in a good conditions. We are from Group A3. This time we will present about textual aspect in drama for our mid-test project. So I hope that you can enjoy our video. Okay, let's move to the group members. The first is me, Putu Vivia, student ID number 005 as first speaker. Next is Putu Mutia Amandari, student ID number 009 as the second speaker. Next is Kadek Budiani, student ID number 018 as third speaker. Nyoman Sukejaye, student ID number 021 as fourth speaker. Putu Dita Mareta, student ID number 022 as fifth speaker, and Kadek Arie Susanti, student ID number 024 as the last speaker. Okay, now we will move to the first material, text and theater. Start with dramatic text. Do you know what dramatic text? Yes, a dramatic text is a text that exposes a conflict in the lives of the characters. Its objective is to represent the conflict to the public. It has been written with the primary objective that the characters interact through dialogues and action in front of the public instead of be read. Dramatic text contained by primary text and secondary text. Primary text is presented through dialogues or the main body of the play spoken by the characters. Secondary text is all text that surround or accompanies the primary text. For example, title, dramatis personae, scene descriptions, stage directions for acting and speaking. Dramatic writings are typically intended to be adapted into a different manner of presentation or media such as the theater. At the theater, the audience is provided with a version of the play that has already been interpreted by the director, performers, costume designers, makeup artists, and all other members of the theatrical crew who bring the play to life. While we can see and hear performers place certain character on stage, we must first understand a text about them while reading a play script, and then at best see and hear their imagined voices. To put it another way, stage performances provided multisensory access to plays and can incorporate multimedia components such as music, sound effect, lighting, stage properties, and among other things. Next is the main features that can look at when we are analyzing drama. The first is information, second is flow, overall structure, space, time, characters, type of utterance in drama, and type of stage dramatic subgenre. Let's move to the next slide. Information flow. Information flow is the movement of information between people and systems. In drama, because there is usually no narrator will tell us what is going on in the tell world in theater, except for narrator features in epic theater and other mediators. The audience must rely on what they can see and hear on stage for information. Except for plays that purposefully incorporate a narrative characteristic, the plane of narrator or narrative is absent in comparison to narrative text. Information can be conveyed linguistically, such as through the character's conversation, or non-linguistically, such as through stage properties, clothing, the stage set, and so on. Second is the amount and detail of information displayed in a play is especially crucial at the start of a play. When the audience expects to learn something about the story's problem or conflict, the primary characters as well as the time and place of the scene.
Thank you so much for the chance that given to me. My name is Putu Vivia Amandari, and now I will continue the presentation. In this chance, I will explain about the structure. Number 1 is story and plot. Number 2 is three unities. Number 3 is pre-text pyramid. Number 4 is open and closed drama. And then I will explain space, word scenery, setting and characterization. And the last one is symbolic space. Okay, the first one is story and the plot. As with the study of narrative text, what can distinguish between story and plot in the drama? Story addresses an assumed chronological sequence of events, while plot refers to the way events are causally and logically connected. Furthermore, plot can have various plot lines, different elaboration of part of the story which are combined to the form in the Act 3 plot. Okay, the next one is I will explain about three unities. Other plays traditionally aimed at conveying a sense of conversion and unity, and one of the classical poetic laws to achieve this goal was the idea of the three unities. The first one is unity of plot, the second one is unity of place, and the third one is unity of time. Furthermore, only the unity of plot is addressed in Aristotle's poetry, and the others to unity are also often attributed to him, while in reality, these concepts are proposed in a hot letter by the Italian Basic of English Study. As you can see in the slide, I will explain about free-text pyramid. One of the examples for free-text pyramid is in the words using didactic drama, technique 1 of the drama 1863, the German journalist and writer Gustav Freytag described the classically 5-act structure of play in the shape of pyramid, and he attributes a particular function to each of the 5 acts. Freytag pyramid can analyze like this. Act 1 contains all introductory information and to serve as exposition. The main characters are introduced, and by presenting a conflict, the play prepares the audience for the action in substance act. The second act is actually propel the plot by introducing further in circle of problem related to the main issues. In Act 3, the plot reaches its climax. A crisis occurs when the death is committed that will lead in the catastrophe, and this brings about the turn or the plot. The fourth act creates new tension in the delay, the final catastrophe by future event, and the last one is the 5th act, finally the hour, and this is bring the solution to the conflict present in the play. Open and closed drama. Another way to look at this traditional plays typically employ a closed structure, while most contemporary art play often. The term open and closed drama go back to the German literary critic Volker Kloch in 1978, who distinguished between plays where the individual acts are tightly connected and logical built on one another, finally lead to a clear resolution of the plot, closed form, and plays where scenes only loosely hang together, and even more exchangeable at a time where the ending does not really bring about any conclusive solution or result. Compare also often the ending of the closed ending in the narrative text. Space. Space is an important element in the drama, since the stage itself also presents a space where action is prepared. The fact that the description of the stage set in the secondary text is something very detailed and sometimes hardly working, mentioned is another crucial starting point for further analysis, since that can tell us something about more general function of setting. At the same time, a detailed set draws attention to problem of the individual milieu, for example, or background in general. Word scenery. As you know guys, Since drama is multimedia, the visual aspect infinitely play an important role. The layout or overall appearance of the set is usually described in the stage direction or description in the beginning of the act of scenes. These all the necessary stage from secondary and possibly stage painting can be presented verbally in the secondary text, which is then it can translate into actual illustration on the stage. One must not forget to the direction are of course the free to the interpret secondary text in different ways and to create innovative realization of play. Setting and characterization. The setting can be used as the means of indirect characterization. As you know guys, a close look at the setting can just contribute to a better understanding of the character and their behavior. Symbolic space. Another important factor to consider in this context is the setting and plot. The plot of a play is never present in the vacuum but always against the background in a specific scenery, and often the setting corresponds with what is going on in the story. One can say that rather the only function as the background of creating or setting the atmosphere, this space becomes symbolic space as the point toward another level of meaning in the text. The setting can to support the expression of the worldview current at a certain time or general philosophical, internal or moral question.
Well, thank you so much for the time given to me. My name is Kadek Budiani, student number 018, and I would like to continue the presentation. The next textual aspect in drama is times. Time in drama can be considered from variety angles. First, we can see time as part of a play. On the other hand, time also a crucial factor in performance of a play. There are three parts that we would like to discuss in this part. The first one is succession and simultaneity. The second one is presentation of temporal frames. And the last one is story time and discourse time. Next slide, please. Thank you. The first one is succession and simultaneity. One of the first distinction one can make is the one between succession and simultaneity. Events and actions can take place in one of two ways, either one after another or successfully, or all at the same time or simultaneously. When these events are performed on stage, their presentation in sense will be inevitably be successive while they may be simultaneous according to the internal time frame of the play. If no other indication of divergent time frames is given in the text, the viewer normally automatically assumes that the event and action presented in subsequent scenes are also successive in their temporal order. Next slide, please. Okay, the second part is presentation of temporal frames. There are numbers of possibilities to create a temporal frame in drama. Allusion to time can be made in the characters' conversations. The exact time of the scene can be provided in the stage direction or certain stage props like clocks and calendars or auditory devices such as church bells. Ringing the text sound can give the audience a clue about what time it is. The exact time is expressed verbally by one of the characters. The crowing of a cock of stage indicates the approaching daylight later in that scene and causes the apparition to disappear. Uses word painting to describe the condition and overall atmosphere, which means that actors describe the scenery vividly and thus create or point a picture in the viewer's minds, while a reading audience is thus informed about the timing of the scenes. Theater goers have the inferred from the context created through the characters' interactions. Next slide, please. And the last part is story time and discourse time. There are also three parts in these parts. The first one is duration. Another important distinction one needs to make when analyzing time in drama, namely between a fictive story time or playtime and real playing time. Well, the play time or the time of the story encompasses several months. The play's actual playing time or time it takes to stage the play is approximately 2 hours. The length of the curtain time is correlated with the length of the time that has been left out in the story. A quick curtain suggests a short time span while normal breaks cover longer time spans of the play time. Next slide, please. The second one is order. Another aspect to look when analyzing time in drama as well as narrative is the concept of order. Like narrative, drama can make use of flashback or analysis and flash forward or prolapses. Three terms which are often used in the context of discussion of chronology and order are three basic types of beginnings are F ovo, in medias res, and mas res. Next slide, please. Thank you. In this slide, we will discuss about the 3 points that I've mentioned before. The first one is F ovo is the play starts at the beginning of the story and provides all the necessary background information concerning the characters, their circumstance, conflict, etc. And then the second one is in medias res, is the story starts somewhere in the middle and leaves the viewer puzzled at first. And the last one is in ultimas res. The story begins with its actual outcome or ending and then relates events in reverse order, thus drawing the audience attention on the how rather than what of the story. Plays which use method are called analytic plays. Next slide, please. The last one is frequency. Another facet of time worth analyzing is the concept of frequency. For instance, how often an event is presented. The categories proposed by Gannett for narrative text are not directly applicable to drama. One can be nevertheless identify similar structures. According to Gannett, there are 3 possible types of reference to an event. The first one is simulative. Simulative is an event takes place once and is reversed to once. The representation of events can be found whenever the scenes in a play contain single action and these actions are represented once. This make is mostly found in linear plots where the main aim is to delineate the development of the conflict. The second one is repetitive. An event takes place once but is referred to or presented repeatedly. A representation of event is more difficult to imagine in drama since, strictly speaking, it would involve the same scene to be played several times in exactly the same way. The last one is iterative. Iterative is an event take place several times but is referred to in the text only once. Its telling occurs when characters refers to the same or similar events that have already happened. Next slide, please. So in this page, I would like to conclude about the time that I have been discussed before. So the conclusion in this part is, as with the presentation of space, aspect of time are rarely presented for their own sake but often imply further levels of meaning that might help one interpret a text, and time can also be symbolic and stand for larger concepts. Different uses of time are, of course, also important for the creation of certain effects on the audience. While non-chronological plots can be confusing, they may also create suspense or challenge the viewer's ability to make connection between events. Furthermore, plays which present a story in its chronological order draw attention to the final outcome and thus are based on the question, what happens next? Whereas plays with non-chronological order which might even anticipate the ending focus on the question, how does everything happen? Next slide, please. Well, I think that's all from me. The next presentation will be presented by my friend Sukejaye. So, Sukejaye, time is yours.
Okay, thanks for the time that given to me. My name is Nyoman Sukejaye, student number 02 and 1. I would like to continue the presentations about characters. The first one, major and minor characters. The characters in play can generally be divided into major characters and minor characters, depending on how important they are for the plot. A good indicator as to whether a character major or minor is the amount of time and speech as well as presence on stage he or she is allocated. Major characters usually have a lot of to say and appear frequently throughout the play, while minor characters have less presence or appear only marginally. For example, Hamlet is clearly the main character or protagonist of Shakespeare's famous tragedy, as we can infer from the fact that he appears in most scenes and allocated a great number of speeches, and what is more, since even his name appears in the title, he is the eponymous hero. Next slide, please. Thank you. The second one, character complexity. Major characters are frequently multidimensional and dynamic round character, which display several character traits and are choose reasonability and complex and also tend to develop throughout the plot, hence dynamic. While minor character often remain monodimensional and static flat character can usually be summarized by a single phrase or statement. They have only few character traits and are generally merely types. Monodimensional characters are also static. They do not develop or change during the play. For example, Laertes in Hamlet as character he corresponds to the conventional French type, and in the play, Laertes functions as a foil for Hamlet. Next slide, please. Thank you. The third one, character and gender convention. The equality of character can also depend on the subgenre to which a play belongs, because genre traditionally follow certain conventions even as far as the dramatic personae. According to Aristotle's poetic, characters in tragedies have to be of a high social rank so that their downfall in the end can be more tragic. While comedies typically employ lower characters who need not be taken so seriously and can just be made fun of. They are supposed to be neither good nor too bad, but somewhere in the middle, which allow them to have some tragic flow. Aristotle calls the effect of catharsis, for example, in the fact that one can suffer with the hero through this strong emotional involvement, clarify one's own state of mind, and potentially become a better human being. Next slide, please. Okay, the next one about contrast and correspondence. Characters in play can often be classified by way of contrast and correspondence. In Middleton and Rowley's, the challenging, for example, the characters in the main plot and the one of the subplot are exposed to similar conflict and problems and thus correspond with one another or certain level, while their reactions are very different, and to show the contrast between corresponding figures. By presenting corresponding character in such a contrastive manner, their individual characteristics are thrown into sharper relief, and certain qualities are highlighted with regard to the overall plot. We can say that the characters in the subplot, the changeling functions as a foil to the characters in the main plot because they bring out more effectively the main characters feature, as a foil is a piece of shiny metal put under gemstone to increase their brightness. Next slide, please. Character constellations. Character can also be classified according to membership to certain group of character, both across to entire plays as well as individual scenes. In other words, questions like who belongs to whom and which character are friend or foes are also essential in drama analysis. If one considers the overall structure of the play and groups of characters therein, one deals with the constellations of the dramatic personnel. Constellations can be based on sympathies and antipathies among characters, on how they act and react to one another. For example, usually one can make a distinction between heroes and their enemies, or protagonists and antagonists, and one can find characters who collaborate and support one another while others fight or plot against each other. Next slide, please. Character configurations. In contrast to character constellations, the term configurations denotes the sequential presentation of different characters together on stage. Configurations to change whenever characters exit or enter the stage. Configurations are important to the extent that they show up groups and developments among group of characters, which in turn is essential for the development of the plot. Next slide, please. Technique of characterization. Character in drama are characterized using various techniques of characterizations. Generally speaking, one can distinguish between characterizations made by author in the play, secondary text, authorial, or by character in the play, figural. And whatever these characterizations are made directly explicit or indirectly implicit. Another distinction can be made between self-characterizations and characterization through other. The way that a different form of characterizations can be accomplished in the play can be schematic as follow. The first one, explicit, authorial, descriptions of character in author, commentary or stage directions, telling names. The second one, figural, characters, descriptions of and comment on other characters, also self-characterizations. Implicit, the first one, authorial, correspondent and contrast indirectly, characterizations name. Figural, physical appears, gesture and facial expressions, body language, mask, custom, stage props, setting, behavior, voice, language, style, register, dialect, and another. Topic 1, discussions. Next slide, please. So what? Character represents one of the most important analytical categories in drama, since they carry the plot. In other words, there cannot be a play without character. Characters' interactions trigger and move the plot, and their various relationships to another form the basic for a conflict and dynamic process. A lot of the terms used for techniques of characterizations in narrative are also applicable in drama, but one needs to be aware of fundamental differences related to the different medium. In drama, to the extent that we often find stage directions or introductory comments in the secondary text, characters in actual performance are always already interpretations of stage directions, and actor will bring characters to life for us. Our view of characters in stage play is too inevitably influenced by the way an actor look, how he speaks, how he acts or out his role. Another other influence factor can be costume and makeup, the overall setting in which a character is presented. I think that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Alright, thank you for the chance that given to me. I am Dita Mareta, student number 22. We'll continue the presentation. So, the next material is about types of utterance in drama. Dramatic is modeled on real-life conversation among people, and yet, when one watches a play, one also has to consider the differences between real talk and drama talk. Dramatic language is ultimately always constructed or made up, and it often serves several purposes. However, dramatic language is often rhetorical and poetic. It uses language in ways which differ from standard use in order to draw attention to its extrinsic nature. When analyzing drama text, one thought to have a closer look at the various forms of utterance available from drama. Next slide, please. Alright, as you can see in the slide, there is monologue, dialogue, and soliloquy. Language in drama can generally be presented either as a monologue or dialogue. Monologue means that only one character speaks while always requires two or more participants. A special form of monologue where no other person is present on stage beside the speaker is called sociology. Sociology are mainly used to present a character in more detail and also know a more personal level. In other words, characters are able to speak their mind. In sociology, that character explain their feelings, motivates, and so on. On stage appear unnatural from a real-life standpoint, but this is necessary in place because it would otherwise be very difficult to convey thought, can be represented directly through techniques such as interior monologue or free direct discourse. And then there is asides. Another special form of speech in drama is the so-called aside. Asides are spoken away from other character, and a character either speaks aside to himself, secretively to other character, or to the audience or spectators. Asides are an important device because they channel extra information past other characters directly to the audience. Thus, spectators are in a way taken into confidence, and they often become partners in crime, so to speak, because they ultimately know more than some of the figures on stage. As a result, the aside has an artificial theatrical device is highlighted and brought to the viewer's attention, which is turned politically ridiculous contemporary confessions. Next slide, please. Here we have turn allocation, stichometia, and reparting. In analyzing dialogue, one can look at turn talking and the allocation of turn to different speakers. How many lines is each character turn? Do some characters have longer turn than others, and if so, why? One can also analyze how often a character gets the chance to speak through the interplays and whether he or she is interrupted by others or not. A special type of turn allocation occurs when the speakers' alternating turns are of one line each. This is called stichometia, and is often, albeit not exclusively, used in contexts where characters counted or disagree with one another. Repartee is a quick response given in order to stop remarks of other speakers or to use them once on advantage. The repartee in record 3.5, 343 till 361 express Elizabeth Taft and counter-argument. The fact that stichometia is used here underlines the argument characters of conversation. Next slide, please. Alright, you can see in the slide there is the significance of wordplay in drama. Wordplay in drama is a literary technique and a form of wit in which word use become the main subject of the work, primarily for the purpose of intended effect or amusement. Example of wordplay includes pun, phonetic mix-up such as spoonerism, obscure word and meaning, clever rhetorical expression, oddly formed sentence, drop a genres, and telling characters' names. Consider the ways Polonius introduced to the king and queen his explanation for Hamlet madness. This play with sound pattern and word catches the audience attention because it derives from normal use of language. At the same time, it is a turning, especially since the audience knows that Polonius' assumption is wrong and Ophelia is not the reason for Hamlet madness. A special type of wordplay is the so-called pun, where words are used which are the same of at least similar in sound and spelling, but differ meaning. Another concept to be mentioning in the context of outplay with language is wit. Wit is expression in brief verbal expression which are intentional conveyed to create a comic surprise. Next slide, please. Alright, in slide there is so wide. So dramatic language is multifaceted and fulfills a number of functions within a play. As a consequence, it can have various effects on the audience. The distribution and amount of turn speakers are allocated in play is an important feature to investigate in drama. Secondly, even the lack of language can be significant. Silence, which can sometimes hardly be borne in real-life conversation, appear particularly marked in plays, especially when it lasts for the length of time. That's all about the material. Thank you.
Hello everyone! I'm Susanti, student number 024, would like to present about type of stage and dramatic subgenres. Let's talk about types of stage first. Drama, just like the other genres, has undergone significant changes in its historical development. This is partly attributable to the fact that stage types have also changed and have thus required different forms of acting. Let us have a look at the various stage forms throughout history. Next slide, please. Alright, as you can see on the slide, there are Greek classicism. Plays in ancient Greece were staged in amphitheaters, which were marked by a round stage about 3/4 surrounded by the audience. Ancient Greek drama was originally performed on special occasions like religious ceremonies, and it thus had a more ritual, symbolic, and also didactic purpose. The example of Greek classicism drama is The Trojan Woman by Euripides and The Suppliants by Aeschylus. Next slide, please. Alright, the next one is the Middle Age. Medieval plays were primarily performed during religious festivities such as mystery plays and morality plays. Staged on wagons, which stopped somewhere in the marketplace and were entirely surrounded by the audience. The acting combined serious renditions of the topic in question with stand-up comedy and funny or bodily scenes, depending on the taste of the audience. The example of drama in the Middle Age is the Chester Mystery Plays, and for the morality play is Everyone. Next slide, please. The next one is Renaissance England. The most common stage form in Renaissance England was the upfront stage, which was surrounded by the audience on three sides. The stage set was reasonably barren, while costumes could be very elaborate. Plays on that period just typically combined various subject matters and modes, such as tragic and comical, because they attempt to appeal to as wide an audience as possible. The example of drama in Renaissance England is Elizabethan theatre. Next slide, please. Alright, the next one is Restoration period. Theatres of the 17th and 18th centuries were considerably smaller than the Elizabethan theatre. They held around 500 people, and performances took place in closed rooms with artificial lighting. The stage was closed in by a decorative frame, and the distance between audience and actors was thus enlarged. There was still room for interaction by means of a minor stage jutting out into the auditorium. The example of drama in the Restoration period is John Dryden, Marriage a la Mode. Next slide, please. Alright, the next one is Modern Times. The stage of the 19th and 20th centuries is called proscenium stage or picture frame stage because it is shaped in such a way that the audience watches the play as it would regard a picture. The example of drama in modern times is Henrik Ibsen's A Doll's House. Next slide, please. Now we move on to the next material about dramatic subgenres. Aristotle's Poetics distinguishes at least between two subgenres of drama. There are comedy and tragedy. Comedy typically aims at entertaining the audience and making it laugh by reassuring them that no disaster will occur, that the outcome of possible conflicts will be positive for the characters involved. On the other hand, tragedy tries to raise the audience's concern to confront viewer with serious action and conflict, which typically end in a catastrophe, usually involving the death of the protagonist and possibly others. Next slide, please. As you can see on the slide, there are some types of comedy which is divided into high and low comedy, and there is 7 subgenres. Those will be explained clearly in the next slide. Alright, scholars distinguish comedy as high comedy, which appeals to the intellect, has serious purpose, and low comedy, where the greater emphasis is placed on situation comedy, slapstick, and farce. There are further subgenres of comedy. The first one is romantic comedy, mostly about love, but also involves some extraordinary circumstances. The example of romantic comedy is Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream or As You Like It. The second one is satiric comedy. The aim is not to make people laugh with the character, but laugh at them. An early writer of satirical comedies was Aristophanes, and the example of satiric comedy is Ben Jonson's Full Pond and The Alchemist. Next slide, please. Okay, the third one is comedy of manners. Comedy of manners takes the artificial and sophisticated behavior of the higher social classes under closer scrutiny. The example of comedy of manner is William Conrad's The Way of the World, William Wycherley, The Country Wife, and the fourth one is Fairs. Fairs is present highly exaggerated and caricatured types of characters and event has an unlikely plot. The example of Fairs is Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew. Next slide, please. Okay, the next one is comedy of humors. Predominance of one of four humors is blood, plague, yellow bile, and black bile. Characters are marked by one of these predispositions, which cause their eccentricity or disaster personality. For example, is Ben Jonson's Every Man in His Humor. The next one is melodrama, a type of stage play which became popular in the 19th century, and it mixes romantic or sensational plots with musical elements. Later, the musical elements were no longer considered essential. The example of melodrama is Brief Encounter by Noel. Next slide, please. Alright, now we move on to the types of tragedy. There are four types of tragedy. The first one is Senecan tragedy. A precursor of tragedic drama were the tragedies by the Roman poet Seneca. His tragedies were recited rather than staged, but they became a model for English playwrights, entailing the 5-act structure, a complex plot, and an elevated style of dialogue. The next one is revenge tragedy or tragedy of blood. This type of tragedy represented a popular genre in the Elizabethan age and made extensive use of certain elements of the Senecan tragedy, such as Basic of English Studies version 3/4, drama 134, Murder, Revenge, Mutilations, and Ghosts. Typical examples of this subgenre are Christopher Marlowe's The Jew of Malta, Shakespeare Titus Andronicus, and Thomas Kipps' The Spanish Tragedy. The next one is domestic or bourgeois tragedy. In line with the changing social system where the middle class gained increasing importance and power, tragedies from the 18th centuries onwards shift their focus to protagonists from the middle or lower classes and were written in prose. The protagonist typically suffers a domestic disaster, which is intended to arouse empathy rather than pity and fear in the audience. An example is George Lillow's The London Merchant or The History of George Barnwell. The next one is tragicomedy. Tragicomedies, as the name suggests, intermingle convention concerning plot, character, and subject matter, deriving from both tragedy and comedy. These characters of both high and low social rank can be mixed as in Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice, or a serious conflict which is likely to end in disaster suddenly reaches a happy ending. Next slide, please. Alright, Cyril Turner's The Revenge Tragedy as such already allocates the play to a specific genre, the so-called revenge tragedy, but when one reads the play, one is often struck by the mixture of tragedy and comedy. Next slide, please. Here are the trailer of the revenge tragedy and also the explanation. The right one is the trailer and the left one is the explanation. I will read about the trailer first. Does the sequel expand her yellow levers? 40? Does she undo herself? Are lordships sold to maintain lady sheets? For the poor benefit of a bewitching minute? Does ever proud and self-affecting dame compare her face for this and crave her maker? In simple bath of milk, when many an infant starves, for her superfluous outside, all for this. Alright, and the explanation is on the left. Act 3. Scene 5 offers a particularly poignant example. In the scenes, Phyllis carefully prepares and eventually executes his revenge on the lecherous Duke who killed Findes Flange because she resisted his advances. In a rhetorically powerful speech, Findes philosophies about the transience of life and hence the pointlessness of giving up morality for pleasure. Next slide, please. Okay, that's all about our presentation. We hope that our presentation, especially the material, can be easily understood by you all. We apologize if there is a mistake from our presentation. Thank you so much for your nice attention. Have a nice day.